Great. Okay, fine. So, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the presenters on their excellent work. This is very exciting information, and I think it's very timely. So there are a few take-home points that I'd like to share with you this afternoon. First is that immunology matters when it comes to cancer and cancer research. Drugs and approaches that are designed to either harness or utilize the power of the immune system have meaningful anti-cancer activity. And one of the ways you can know this must be true is that tomorrow that we'll be announcing that the AACR is launching a new journal, Cancer Immunology Research, which is, I think, a testimony to the emerging importance of immunology in the world of cancer research. I'll be serving as a deputy editor and would be happy to do so. Now, getting back to these presentations, I think there are two broad areas that are worthy of consideration here. The first is that we can now harness the power of the immune system to make drugs that can selectively target cancers, these monoclonal antibodies. This represents the fulfillment of a century-long dream first had by Dr. Paul Ehrlich in the early 20th century about creating so-called magic bullets. And Dr. Baselga's work is a follow-on to the work that was described last year about the Amelia trial, where it was shown that this is a very effective treatment for women with HER2 overexpressing breast cancer that has previously failed to respond to trastuzumab. And what's really important about this, and I think that the take-home point for me, is that when you have drugs that work really well, the predictive biomarkers that you might have identified earlier no longer matter, because you basically overwhelm the tumor's defense mechanisms directed against the therapy. And I think that this is a really lovely collaboration between drug therapy and immunology in order to create an effective therapeutic platform. And I think that's then amplified by the work by Dr. Liu, showing that the lessons of TDM1 are not unique to that drug. This is not a one-off example of a drug that worked. This is a therapeutic concept that matters and makes sense, that you can take an antibody that will target an important antigen on a tumor cell surface. You can deliver a cytotoxic poison into the interior of that cell, and you can kill it, and you can make people's cancers get better. And that's a very, very powerful tool, because these drugs are working where you could not give these drugs otherwise because of the side effect profile of these very powerful drugs. The antibody delivers them where they got to go. And I think this is a very powerful set of examples of where the field is going to head as we develop novel cytotoxics in the future, targeting them appropriately. So the second big take-home point is harnessing the power of the immune system itself to attack cancers. And Dr. Kandeloff's work shows that it's now possible to devise very effective and complex but feasible combination strategies. You can do a vaccination that will basically point the immune system in the direction of the tumor, finding the antigen that it ought to be attacking, or the antigens it ought to be attacking. And then you can further expand that response in a very useful and productive way through adoptive transfer of activated T cells that have been educated to attack that particular set of antigens. And so this kind of combinatorial strategy suggests that we're not only going to be making combinations of immunotherapies with chemotherapies, but we're also going to be doing combination immunotherapies in order to have a more complex attack against the cancer that can actually overcome some of the innate resistance mechanisms that cancers use. You know, when I give lectures to medical students or grad students, I always ask, what's the difference between immunology and tumor immunology? And I get all these fancy answers. The answer to that question is the difference between tumor immunology and immunology is tumors. It's what tumors are doing to evade the immune response. And we have to understand that, and these combinatorial strategies allow us to begin attacking them in a very productive way. And then finally, Dr. Lee's presentation shows that you can actually combine the notion of antibody targeting, which is what a chimeric antibody receptor or T cell is all about, with the actual activation of the immune response directed right against the cancer. As Dr. Sawyer's mentioned, this is a very hot area. There's a lot of work being done in using these chimeric T-cell receptors with the goal of specifically eradicating tumors. And I think that it's a kind of a notion of not just trying to release the dogs, if you will, by blocking the way tumors defend themselves against cancer, but also learning that we can overcome those defenses just by expanding the power of the anti-tumor immune response. So I think it's a very powerful strategy that we're moving forward with. So as we look to the future, I think it's fair to say that we still need drugs. We still need to be able to use drugs to treat cancer, and I think that the future of our field will include all of the conventional modalities that we've always been using. But here we now have an opportunity to say the drugs have another fourth modality. It's chemotherapy, surgery, radiation. I think it's time to start recognizing, but once and for all, that immunology and immunotherapy belongs in that mix as well. Thank you.